Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. We're certainly pleased to have all of you here. It is Tuesday, July 17th, and it's going to be a great meeting. We'll start our meeting with the roll call of your City Council.
Council members Jamison.
Here.
Karski. Rolfing. Staggers. Aguilar.
Here.
Anderson Jr.
Here.
Entenmann.
Here.
Erpenbach. Here.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Before I introduce Pastor Kirk Flaw of Abiding Savior for our invocation, I do want to recognize that we've got Troop 361, a group of Boy Scouts here that are learning more about government, how to be a good citizen, and it's always a pleasure to have young leaders here. So if you wouldn't mind just standing and so we can recognize you. And men, you all look very professional tonight. Thank you. Looks great. Now, but I do want to turn it over to a very, very important part of our meeting every week, and that is the invocation. Pastor Kirk Flaw is here from the Abiding Savior Lutheran Church. He will lead us in prayer, and what I'd ask you to do is to remain standing, and then after Pastor Kirk is done, we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Kirk.
I do want to take liberty to say thank you to all that for allowing us to come down. It's a real privilege for a pastor to be able to come and to share a word of encouragement and to pray. And I would speak specifically for the council and for the mayor as well, that on behalf of our congregation, you are regularly prayed for in my own personal time as well as the life of our congregation. We are blessed to be in this community and blessed to have you representing us, and we give thanks for that. I'm going to share tonight as I would begin from the book of Job, chapter 12 and verse 13. And the reference, of course, is to God. And it says, "With him are wisdom and might, to him belong counsel and understanding." Heavenly Father, as we gather this night to labor, Heavenly Father, for the service of this community, we do acknowledge a need for wisdom and for understanding, for grace and for guidance. And Father, as we pray now for that, for each of these members of this council and for the mayor, and all those in leadership positions, we give thanks that we are able to come and to do so freely. We thank you that the freedoms that you have granted to us, and I pray, God, that as a people, we would not take these freedoms lightly. I thank you for each and every individual that's here. I thank you especially for these council members that are giving of their time, Lord, and are dedicated to the service of this community. We live in a wonderful community, greatly blessed of you, and we give thanks for that. I ask now, Heavenly Father, as the book of Job says, that with you are counsel and understanding. We ask, Lord, for an extra measure of wisdom and grace, not only in this night, but in the nights to come as well. May you grant that unto these individuals. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, thank you very kindly. Appreciate it.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks so much for being here tonight. I've got a special proclamation. This is one that is very, very important to me and to my family. But if we could invite some good people up to help share in this one, I'd certainly appreciate it. And Shar, would you mind just introducing yourself and as well as the rest of the folks before we read the proclamation? Thank you.
Charlotte Hofer, Public Relations Manager for the American Cancer Society.
I'm Denise Cole, the Director of Health Partnerships for the American Cancer Society.
Jen Johnson from the Sioux Falls Health Department.
Julie Ward, Director of Communications for Avera McKinnon Hospital.
This proclamation starts, whereas August 2012 shall be proclaimed Cancer Prevention Month in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Whereas cancer is a leading cause of death in South Dakota. Whereas this year more than 4,400 new cases will be diagnosed and nearly 1,600 cancer deaths will occur in South Dakota. Whereas early detection of cancer is known to reduce mortality rates, whereas 2/3 of cancers are preventable with basic lifestyle changes, whereas physical activity, healthy eating habits, avoidance of tobacco products, protection from ultraviolet radiation, and regular cancer screenings are shown to reduce the risk of getting cancer, prevent it, or find it early when it's most treatable. Whereas investment and participation in life-saving cancer research can save lives. Whereas together, we are recruiting men and women nationwide to participate in the American Cancer Society Prevention Study 3, otherwise known as CPS 3, a study that will significantly increase our understanding of cancer and help to identify new ways to prevent it. Whereas CPS 3 is an ongoing study of participants to measure how lifestyle, environment, and behavior increase cancer risk. Whereas the American Cancer Society is bringing CPS 3 to the Sioux Falls community as an opportunity to participate in an historic national research project. Whereas enrollment in CPS 3 by members of this town, of the Sioux Falls community, will provide increased cancer knowledge and awareness. Whereas Sioux Falls is uniting with the American Cancer Society to enroll participants in Cancer Prevention Study 3 during the week of August 14th through the 18th. 5 local partners are involved as enrollment sites, including Avera McKinnon Hospital and the University Health Center, Sanford Health, Citibank, the City of Sioux Falls, First Premier Bank, and Premier Bank Card. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim August 2012 as Cancer Prevention Month in Sioux Falls. I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for your leadership, your involvement, your stewardship. Sioux Falls, we can do more. We need your help. And that's why Shar and her team are reaching out to all of you, and I'm going to do the same. Thank you very much, and thanks for your leadership again. We'll now move on to tonight's consent agenda.
Mr.
Council?
Mayor?
Yes.
Point of leadership privilege, please. 2 things. First of all, tomorrow night's work session for council has been canceled. That is a public meeting that has been public noticed in the proper amount of time, and it now is being canceled a little less than 24 hours from when it starts. Then the other thing that I would tell the public is that because of the work that's being done to this building, the fumes in this building have been quite, almost deadly. The headaches and illness kind of issues, and so we're moving our staff somewhere else tomorrow. So if you need city clerk help or anything like that, maybe stop by here. There'll be a sign, or check on the web, email someone first. But just know ahead of time that with the construction that's going on, that our folks will be elsewhere.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, any other motions to yes, Councilor Jameson.
Mr. Mayor, under communications, item number 1, we have 2 items that I'd like to bring to a full discussion. And I know there's a couple of directors here who are going to update us on a couple of items under contracts. So I would ask that they be moved to the regular agenda.
Councilor Jameson, thank you.
That would be a motion, I suppose.
Seconded.
Councilor Jameson's being a motion to move 2 items from the consent agenda to the regular agenda?
Yep.
And it has been seconded.
Point of order, though. Do we need to vote on that? No. One council member can ask for them to be moved to the agenda.
By ordinance, 1 council member can remove it to the regular agenda.
Great. So Councilor Jameson's made that request. And Councilor Jameson, would you mind, just for the public's sake, which 2 items did you want to talk about directly?
Sure, thank you. Under central services, there's a space needs assessment agreement for services with TSP for $19,900. And the other item is the, for Parks and Rec Department, the Lovett Theater Master Plan Agreement for Engineering Services with Stockwell Engineers for $19,900.
Okay, great job. Lori, would you mind telling me then, where will that be on tonight's regular agenda?
Yes, and that actually is item number 1. Both of those items are covered under item number 1, which is titled Approval of Contracts/Agreements on July 12, 2012 Memo. So we'll move item number 1, and that will go directly after public input, just prior to item 10.
Okay. Do we give that a number? Do we call it 9A? Do we kind of, what do we do?
Well, we just refer to it as item number 1.
Item number 1.
And then
okay.
we'll reflect in our records when the discussion was held.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Buck.
Point of order then, we would move just those 2 items out of that the rest of item number 1 will pass on the consent agenda because it's being left on the consent agenda, just so that the public understands what we're doing.
Sounds great. Councilor Jameson has made a request to move 2 items that were originally in the consent agenda to the regular agenda. We'll discuss that right after the public input, and we'll title it item 1 under the regular agenda. And it sounds like we don't have to vote on that, so that's good news. Then we'll go back to the consent agenda. Council, any more change? Yes, Councilor Aguilar.
Move approval.
Second, Erpenbach.
It's been a motion to approve the consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Any discussion? Councilor Erpenbach?
Then, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend the consent agenda by removing item 9 from the consent agenda.
Okay, there's been a motion to amend tonight's consent agenda by removing item 9. Is there a second?
Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Entenmann seconded that. Is there any discussion? If we could have a roll call vote on the amendment.
All right. Okay. Council members Jameson,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson Jr.,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Great, and that has passed 5-0. And for the people of Sioux Falls, so you understand, it did need 5 votes to do that. And the council was able to secure that, so we're going to move forward. Now we've got an amended consent agenda. Any further discussion? Great. A roll call vote, please.
Okay, council members Jameson,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson Jr.,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That has passed 5-0. Great job. Now we'll move on to tonight's regular agenda. But before we, no, we do want to approve the regular agenda. Thank you.
Move approval, Aguilar.
Thank you for saving me, Councilor Aguilar, or Councilor Aguilar. Thank you.
Second, Entenmann.
And seconded by Councilor Entenmann. I appreciate that. Is there any discussion on that? A roll call vote, please.
Okay, council members Jameson,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson Jr.,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That has passed 5-0. This is a great opportunity for the public to engage the council. It's our public input portion of tonight's meeting. Is there anybody who wanted to talk to the council on any topic? If you do, just come forward. We'd ask you to just introduce yourself to the people of our town and then just limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Anybody interested? Well, great. Thank you for being here anyway. We appreciate that. We'll now move on to item number 1.
All right, and the item under consideration is under a memorandum for approval of contracts and agreements dated July 12, 2012. The first item is a space needs assessment for central services, agreement for services to TSP, $19,900. And the second item will be for the Levitt Theater Master Plan, agreement for engineering services for Parks and Rec, for Stockwell Engineers, $19,900.
Thank you. Sue, would you want to come forward, please?
Can you hear me now? Okay. Good evening. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the space needs assessment that we want to conduct on City Hall. I've had several directors approach me to indicate a need for additional space, or in some cases, a look at the environment that they have. You know, is it not only square feet, but what is the quality of the space that they have. For example, we do have some employees in the basement of City Hall, and it's not optimum. We'd rather have them in a nicer space. So the question is, how do we go about assessing those needs to determine the best thing to do? There are quite a few buildings in the vicinity of City Hall, for example, that have leased space available. If we moved a department or two out of City Hall, it would free up a lot of space. But what's the best way of doing that? We really need to do a formal assessment to determine what our needs are, what are our current space challenges, what are the options that we could use to solve those space needs challenges, how can we better utilize the space that we already have, how can we utilize the space that we have to better serve the public. So, for example, one of the ideas tossed around is, well, what if we had a floor dedicated to all of the areas that serve the public frequently, to pay parking tickets, to get permits or licensing and things like that. It would definitely serve the public better to be all in one area. We can't really do that with what we have with today's City Hall layout. What are our space needs going to be over the next 3 to 5 years? What are our options to address those changing needs? And what are the approximate costs associated with the space needs assessment? So I did go back to see when was the last formal space needs assessment done. It was in 2007, 2008 by the Winkles Group. And that was a very successful study. A lot of the recommendations were carried out. For example, first floor of the annex was remodeled to allow IT to move into that area. Third floor of City Hall now houses fire inspectors, which is more convenient for the public than having to go to 37th and Minnesota. So, and then of course the health department moved out of the annex and into their current location. The cost of that space needs assessment was $40,000, and that was in 2007. I was able to get a better price than that by first going to the Winkles Group, just asking if they could do an updated space needs assessment. They informed me that they are exclusively working for Sanford now, so no, they could not. They highly recommended TSP, and TSP has done a lot of work at City Hall already. They have CAD drawings, and Winkles was only too glad to forward along all of the study products from the last space needs assessment. So that's why we were able to get it at under $20,000. Questions?
Councilor Aguilar.
Sue, in that same study, wasn't it true that they projected that, I'm not sure if it was 2012, that City Hall would run out of space?
Exactly. Yep. And we're kind of there. Yep.
What year is this? Sorry. Councilor Jameson?
Well, the only reason I brought it out of the consent agenda was that this is the first I had seen of it. And if this body or this person is going to approve the expenditure of the money, it'd only be fair that we hear about it and know that it's happening. I guess it's been happening for 6 months or more. And it just seems like, I don't know if council leadership knew of this study occurring, but it just seemed like a better approach would have been appreciated, that somehow we could have been informed that the city was, I remember this last study, and I think the council was involved in discussing whether it was a good or bad idea to do the needs assessment. And we all agreed. And I think we would still agree today that those benefits of changing the way that City Hall is set up would be beneficial to everybody and provide better service. But all I was looking for was a better heads up, that's all.
I understand.
Councilor Jameson, thank you.
Then,
Councilor Buck?
Mr. Mayor, do we need a motion then to approve this? Yes, we do. I would move approval on this item.
Second, Aguilar.
Councilor Box made a motion to approve this item, and it was seconded by Councilor Aguilar. Any further discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson Jr.,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 5-0. Item 2.
All right. The second item that we're considering is item number 9. Is that correct?
No, we're still on the contract thing.
Okay. I had read that one already. We're going to do the second one. Okay. Levitt Theater Master Plan Agreement for Engineering Services, Parks and Recreation with Stockwell Engineers, $19,900.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, Don Kearney with Parks and Recreation. Yeah, this is an agreement with Stockwell Engineer, who will also work with Geotech as a subconsultant to Stockwell to really assess the site at Falls Park West. If you remember, during one of the recent council CIP work sessions, we essentially talked to the local Levitt organizing committee, that being Tom Dempster and many others, about the needing to evaluate the site before us feeling comfortable moving forward with putting a Levitt Pavilion in Falls Park West. And so really what this does is it does some due diligence on the site. If you remember, this site has contaminated soils, it has a clay cap, and so we felt it was important to have Stockwell Engineers and Geotech, who originally were involved in the mitigation plan and the clay cap process when that was restored from the old salvage yard that used to be there. And so we really want to make sure that before we make a leap into the Levitt Pavilion project and other improvements to come in Falls Park West, that we really know what we're getting into, that we work with Public Works Environmental and Bob Capel and his team, as well as the DENR as it relates to that clay cap. And so what this does is it basically allows us to get a cost estimate for what it would take to construct a facility at that location in the case of a Levitt Pavilion. What special considerations do we need to consider as we work on that site? Because obviously we want to treat the contaminants carefully. There's also different levels of contaminant within that site. And so it's important as we place that facility that we know what we're dealing with, and essentially that's what this project would do. It does not commit us to building anything on that site at this point.
Councilor Aguilar.
I'm sorry, I don't have my CIP projected budget here. Is the Levitt project in the current CIP that's being proposed?
It is, but not until 2014 and 15.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Don, I guess this is the only site that has been selected then, or is there other sites, other options for this Levitt Pavilion?
Well, that's really a great question, Councilmember Anderson. We did actually look at 8 to 10 different sites across the community, and it really came down to 3 different sites that the Levitt Executive Director identified as potentially being a location for a Levitt Pavilion. One was Faywick Park, the other one was Falls Park proper as we know it today, and then Falls Park West. And so based on the size of the crowds that we need to accommodate there, I think everybody felt like that was the best location. And the other reality with the other 2 sites, Faywick Park also has contamination issues that we're dealing with there. And then Falls Park itself, obviously there's lots of garbage that's been dumped over there in the history of our city. And so there's issues to deal with there as well. But the key was to have it in the heart of the city, in downtown Sioux Falls, so that it was a comfortable place for everybody to congregate. And so we really believe this is the leading candidate. We already use it for many other events: Hot Harley Nights, Downtown Live, German Fest, Irish Fest. It's really proven to be a very popular location for our special events. And so that's why we're really keen in on this. This just allows us to make sure that the site's going to work and we can deal with the contaminants.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
If this engineering study comes out and we move forward with the Levitt Pavilion, is this expenditure going to be part of, I believe it was about $400,000 is what the city might have to come up with to get that Levitt Pavilion started?
Yeah, anybody that would work on a project in this area will benefit from this information. Even if a Levitt Pavilion is not constructed here, it's still a good information to know how to deal with the contaminants, because ultimately we do want to use the site. But the $400,000 is actually what the Levitt Pavilion group would provide for the cost of the actual structure, and then they also provide additional money for the first 5 years for operating support to make sure you get it off the ground and it goes well.
Don, I think Councilor Anderson Jr. is inquiring how much money would the city ultimately have to set aside for the pavilion. Is that fair, Councilor Anderson Jr.?
Yeah, I guess I got my numbers mixed up as far as who had to come up with that 400,000.
Yeah, the typical Levitt Pavilion is in that $1 million range. Some have spent more, some have, I don't think anybody spent less than that. But I would say that the total cost would be in that $1.5 million to $2 million range. But again, until we look at this site and have this contaminant issue dealt with to know what we're getting into, it's important that we do this work first so we can have a good cost estimate.
And just one more question.
Please.
And then could you explain exactly the dimensions of the site that we're going to be taking a look at so the citizens understand that also too, please?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. Not everybody knows what we refer to as Falls Park West. It's essentially the area north of our Parks and Recreation offices located on the northeast corner of 6th and Phillips. It's on the east side of Phillips Avenue to the river and to Sioux Steel, and then north to the railroad tracks and the overpass that goes across the river.
Thank you.
Councilor Urbanbach.
Well, I guess I need clarification then. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the study itself, it's a $19,000 study. Are we going to study that entire area so we kind of have a map of where the contamination is and we can use that in future, whether the Levitt Pavilion or whatever gets built there?
Yeah, we actually have some pretty good background data when the site was capped with clay. That was pretty well mapped. We already know where that's at. It's just a matter of identifying where the best location for the pavilion might go. How do we accommodate parking? How do we accommodate access drives? And then the other big thing is getting utilities to the site. You'll have to obviously trench through or bore through the location. So as we go through that area, what do we do with the contaminants? How do we deal with that? And we just want to make sure we've got all the pieces of information before we launch into a project of this magnitude. So,
Councilor Henneman.
And just to reconfirm, though, that any study that we do there is going to be able to use for any other type of improvements we might be able to do in that facility.
Yeah, exactly. The site is really sat with the exception of some lighting and some pathways going through there. There's really no project that is dove into the actual clay cap and how to deal with that situation. So ultimately we need to have these answers anyway, and the Levitt Pavilion is really driving the need for the study.
It is a great facility, and it works out fantastic for these festivals that we have in downtown Sioux Falls, so it's great. Good.
Councilor Jameson.
I would agree with Councilor Entenmann that the venue is perfect. I'm not sure if it's best for the Levitt. It may be perfect for the city of Sioux Falls on our own. So I'm excited about you getting to figure out what this land is capable of doing. But where's the 19.9 coming from? Where's that money at today? I don't see it in the current capital plan.
Another great question. Actually, it's not in our capital program because in the current budget we don't have a capital project for this, and so it's coming out of our operating budget. We've made room in our operating budget to cover it, knowing that it's an important project from the community. I know the park board's excited about it. Many of the city council members have expressed interest in it and support for it, so we felt like it was important to get the study going so that if we do need to identify a different site, we can certainly do that. But we wanted to move forward with it, and we're paying for it out of our operating budget.
Move to approve, Entenmann.
Is there a second? Been a motion to approve by Councilor Entenmann, second by Councilor Anderson Jr. Question, Councilor Anderson Jr.
Don, when you say you pulled it out of your operating budget, is that a transfer from another project that saved money, or is it just excess?
No, well, what we'll do is that we will pay for it out of our operating budget, but know that that's an additional expense we didn't anticipate. And as we work through our budget month to month, towards the end of the year, we'll have to make sure that it's accounted for. Okay. So there's not one specific project we're not going to do, but obviously we don't spend our budget every year either. And so the entire budget, excuse me.
And that's where I was headed, is if you have savings on several different projects, you do the transfer over to that project there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Great questions. Thank you, Council. There's been a motion and it has been seconded. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Okay.
Council members Jamison,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson Jr.,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 5-0. Item 10.
Okay, item 10 is transfer of a 2012 retail liquor license from Soft Egg Inc., Whisk and Chop, 108 South Minnesota Avenue to Porter Apple Company B Inc., Applebee's Neighborhood Grill and Bar, to be operated at 108 South Minnesota Avenue, including Sunday sales, full-service restaurant, CUP not required. Should I continue on? I think Jamie has a comment on item 10.
Jamie, welcome.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer, licensing specialist. I am going to ask for a motion to withdraw this item due to the fact that there are issues that they are not the leasee or owner of the property, therefore they cannot have the transfer go through. So we need to withdraw this item.
Jamie, thank you. Would there be a motion to withdraw?
So moved, Erpenbach.
Second, Entenmann.
There's been a motion to withdraw item number 10, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. And if there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Okay, council members Jamison,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson Jr.,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 5-0. Item 11.
Transfer of a 2011-12 retail malt beverage South Dakota Farm Winery license from Lita Investment Corporation, Easy Dough Casino, 2309 West 12th Street, to Lita Investment Corporation, Easy Dough Casino, 2309 West 12th Street, including video lottery terminals, with a conditional use permit being approved on June 6, 2012. Item 12, renewal of the 2012-13 retail malt beverage South Dakota Farm Winery license for Lita Investment Corporation, Easy Dough Casino, to be operated at 2309 West 12th Street, including video lottery terminals, with a conditional use permit being approved on June 6, 2012. 13, renewal of the 2012-2013 retail malt beverage license for Royal Palace Inc., Royal Palace, to be operated at 5015 South Louise Avenue. 14, special one-day wine license for Avera McKinnon Hospital and University Health Center, to be held at the Avera Prairie Center, 1000 East 23rd Street, for a Rock Garden Tour fundraiser on July 19, 2012. Item 15, special one-day liquor licenses for Hy-Vee Inc., all occasions by Hy-Vee, to be operated at the Point is to Serve Church, 506 North Kiwanis Avenue, for weddings on August 11 and May 18. August 11 is 2012, May 18 is 2013. Item 16, special one-day beer and wine licenses for Sanford Health, to be operated at the Sanford Center Great Lawn, 2301 East 60th Street North, for an employee appreciation event on August 3, 2012. 17, special one-day liquor license for Hy-Vee Inc., all occasions by Hy-Vee, to be operated at the Great Plains Zoo and Delbridge Museum, 805 South Kiwanis Avenue, for a zoo fundraiser on August 9, 2012. And item 18, special one-day liquor license for Avera McKinnon Hospital and University Health Center, to be held at the Avera Prairie Center, 1000 East 23rd Street, for an oncology symposium social on September 21, 2012.
Jamie, any comments?
None. There's just two, transfer with a renewal, and then a standard renewal, and then 5 special one days, so nothing out of the ordinary.
Thank you. Council, any comments?
Move to approve Anderson.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve these items, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson Jr.,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 5-0. Item 19.
Item 19 is second reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city to establish single-stream recycling.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Bob Capel with the Public Works Environmental Division. I'd like to introduce my team members tonight, Mark Cotter, Director of Public Works, and Dave McRoy, our landfill superintendent. Our team, along with the Solid Waste Planning Board, are proposing revisions to Chapter 18 of our ordinance to standardize recycling collection. And tonight I will give you a summary of some of the past presentations I have given to this council. As you know, the city owns and operates a major regional sanitary landfill, which serves a 5-county region. The purpose of the landfill is to protect the health and welfare of the public and the environment. The city has committed to waste minimization and recycling. Past councils have adopted ordinances that exclude materials from our landfill, designated required recyclable materials, establish garbage hauler recycling goal, and in 2012 that is 20%, and they've established an ordinance of a hauler recycling standard, which is 16% this year. The recycling collection system is a privately owned and operated system. Exception is the City of Madison. Madison owns and operates a small collection service which serves some of their community, while the private sector collection agency also helps collect garbage from Madison. The recycling collection system is an open subscription system. The recycling collection methods that are currently being used in our community are source separated, dual stream, and single stream. As you know, the city developed a sustainability master plan. As part of that plan, there was a solid waste recycling and assessment that developed 8 recommendations for the city's consideration to improve waste minimization. City staff and administration assessed and prioritized those recommendations. The city decided to pursue the recommendation to standardize recycling collection method and recycling materials collected. If you recall, in the past, we listed significant public involvement that we used through the use of our solid waste planning board and the city council. Matter of fact, I think this is our 5th meeting in front of the council, including the informational where we talked about our sustainability master plan and the need for standardization of recycling. We also had 4 meetings with our solid waste planning board, 2 of them with their ordinance subcommittee. We evaluated 2 of the recycling collection methods, source separated and single stream. We selected those 2 because currently in our region we have recycling facilities that collect recyclable commodities and recycle in that format, source separated and single stream. The Solid Waste Planning Board unanimously recommends that the city adopt the proposed ordinance revisions to establish a standardized recycling collection methodology, and that method is residential single stream recycling. Again, the major reasons for selecting single stream, first and foremost, is the convenience to our customers. It will also allow an improvement in our public education program. This selection will have less impact on our solid waste and recycling industry. Haulers using single stream currently manage approximately 88% of the solid waste in our region. There has been a significant private industry infrastructure investment that we are fortunate to have locally in our community. And it has been demonstrated that there are higher recycling rates nationally and locally with single stream. Specifically, locally, in 2011, the garbage haulers that exceeded 15% recycling rate all used single stream recycling. Also, in 2011, the single stream haulers overall achieved a 21% recycling rate, while those garbage haulers that use source separated techniques only achieved a 12% recycling rate. We believe, our team and the Solid Waste Planning Board, that it is time to locally implement this prudent measure, and we are following the industry lead. With your support, we believe that this change will provide significant improvement in our waste minimization efforts while having the least amount of negative effects on the overall solid waste and recycling industry. If adopted, we shall be a more sustainable community with the benefit of extending the life of our landfill for our current and future generations. We ask for your support of these proposed changes to the ordinances. And I'd like to open it up to the council for any questions.
And Bob, thank you. But before we do that, this is a second reading, so the public actually has an opportunity to engage the council on this. Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this item before I go to the council? Welcome. If you could just introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Lori Cressman with Advanced Recycling Systems. And I'm sorry, I have to get my glasses.
Lori? And if there's anybody else who wants to speak, if you could just be ready. And what we'd ask is if you can keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Thank you.
Apologize. Good evening, and thank you for your time tonight. Again, I'm Lori with Advanced Recycling Systems, and I have stressed to many people that I firmly believe the source separation is a true green way to recycle. I will not oppose the recommendation, though, to mandate single-stream recycling for the residents because of the convenience for the customers and the ease of being able to educate, to get the education out for the single stream. I know that Bob Capel and his staff have worked very hard on trying to get the recycling percentages up and the participation rate, and I want to thank you for your efforts. I would at this time like to request keeping the glass out of the single stream. It causes too much contamination and problems to the end users. I know that glass is allowed in the single stream now, but if single stream becomes mandatory, now is the time to make the change to take glass out. There has been a push to standardize recycling so that the education for recycling can be more uniform. If this change to the ordinance passes, I believe the education will or should start immediately and should be very aggressive. So again, I feel this is the right time to take glass out of the mix. I am not asking to discontinue glass recycling. My suggestion is to have drop sites throughout the city for the customers that want to recycle glass. Glass, on average, is approximately 5% of the material in the single stream. And I've sent out emails, and I have to apologize, some of them probably didn't go through, with copies of letters from 2 of our mills and a broker, and stating their concerns with the contamination of glass. In the letter from Clearwater Paper, it is not stated in this letter, but during a phone conversation I had with Cindy West, the fiber procurement manager, she stated that if single stream with glass continues to drive the market, they will no longer be able to use the recycled material to manufacture tissue paper, is what this recycling facility, this mill does. They do the facial tissue, napkins, and bath tissue. And she said that they may be forced into using raw virgin material because of the contamination of the glass shards is a tremendous safety issue. In the article in the Argus Leader yesterday, it quoted a comment that said, "Good equipment can handle all types of goods, including glass. If they have substandard equipment or the wrong process, you are going to have a problem." Now, I have toured many facilities in other states, and they are state-of-the-art facilities. These companies did their research. They put the best equipment they could find in. These are new single-stream units that have been installed in the last 6 months to a year, so they are all updated. Their comment is, it doesn't matter how good your equipment is, there is no way you can keep all the shards of glass out of the fiber. If there is any way to keep glass out, do whatever you can. It causes safety issues, equipment issues, and is very costly to process and ship out. There are many of you who have toured my facility and you've seen the glass shards and how impossible it would be to try to keep them out of the fiber materials. There are cities out there that have made the choice to keep glass out of the single stream. I hope that our city is one that will make this decision. ARS takes pride in the quality of our material, and we have never had a problem with marketability of our product. Bob Capel asked me today or yesterday if there were any haulers that would support this effort to keep the glass out. He had not heard of any of the haulers that would. And so I only got the opportunity to talk to 7 haulers. And of these five stated that if everyone was on the same playing level and it would not be counted on their recycling percentages, they would not want to pick up glass and it's because of equipment and safety issues. One said he didn't care one way or the other, and another stated that he really wouldn't want to support it because he thinks that he would have his customers complaining. As he spent a little time thinking about it, he said if the city would mandate to take glass out and everybody was on the same level, he would support it. He did not think he'd have a large amount of customers that would complain. He also said that he has not been doing the single stream very long, and he can already see that what the damage is doing to his equipment. So I will end with, is it right to pass the problems and expense on to the end users for our convenience so that our numbers for recycling look better? Sometimes the easiest way isn't always the right way. And I want to thank you for your time and consideration tonight.
Lori, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak to this item? Very good. Oh, welcome.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor, Councilors. Jake Anderson, Millennium Recycling. I too would like to commend the Public Works Department for their work on this. They've been very thorough and transparent throughout this process and objectively looked at the issue from all sides before making this recommendation. You just heard Advanced Recycling make all kinds of declarations about glass and contamination. They've made similar arguments against single stream in general back in 2007 when we first started our single stream program. Then they argued against glass recycling a couple years later. Now they seem to be in favor of single stream and glass, but just not mixed together. Meanwhile, we've been very consistent with single stream and in glass in our single stream program since 2008. 10 years ago, I probably would have agreed with her. I started in the recycling industry as a paper and fiber broker back in the mid-90s, and there was a time that I wasn't convinced either that it made sense to commingle material. Well, the business has changed. The industry has changed. The equipment has definitely changed. The separation technology that's out there and being used in facilities like mine is really remarkable, and it's the kind of thing that didn't exist just 10 years ago. I made a major investment in this equipment in 2007, not because I wanted to spend a bunch of money, but because I made an assessment about what direction the business was headed. I was criticized by many at the time who didn't buy into the same vision that we had. Facts are pesky things. They're also indisputable and undeniable. We've more than doubled what we process through our facilities since we started single stream in 2007. We've added a second shift and tripled our workforce. Earlier, Bob Capel showed you the results, not tonight, but in an earlier council meeting. The results in terms of what the recycling rates have done. Those are facts. What is also a fact is that during this period, we've not had one rejection or downgrade from an end user because of glass contamination. Not one. And our residue rate, in other words, what we send to the landfill, is under 3%. It's just way under the average residue rate for a single stream facility such as ours. Advanced has provided letters and emails from 2 consuming paper mills basically stating that contamination is a problem in scrap paper. I agree with that. Fortunately for us, we don't have a problem because we have a state-of-the-art processing facility and other quality control measures in place. We don't have glass in our paper, period. Several of you have been to our facility and you've seen it yourself. Ironically, the 2 paper mills that Advanced cited are 2 paper mills that we ship material to as well, Liberty Paper and Clearwater Paper. The 2 buyers are people I've known both for 18 years since I've been in the industry, and the buyer for Clearwater that Advanced just referenced is someone that we worked for the same company back in the 90s for several years. I sell 1,000 tons of material per month to both of these facilities. Never had a problem. I would be happy to provide documentation from both that stated that fact. I've been to dozens of recycling facilities and end-user facilities myself. Glass is being effectively recycled in single stream systems all over North America and will continue to be the trend in the industry in the years to come. To suggest otherwise is disingenuous. I could spend an hour listing all the communities in the U.S. that have transitioned to single stream, including glass. But all you have to do is go online and do a search and you can see that for yourselves. Trying to collect glass separately is going backwards and unnecessary when a facility exists that can effectively accommodate that material stream. Advance is further incorrect about the percentage of glass in the residential stream. It's not 5%, it's between 10 and 15%. We have the facts to back that up. and after fiber, it's the second largest material by weight. That isn't to say that this is easy to deal with, because it isn't, and maybe just that's just the real issue here. Rather than invest in the necessary equipment and to have to deal with a tough material, Advance would prefer to take us backwards and either require haulers to go back to having multiple compartments or doing drop-off locations. Who's going to pay for that? At the end of the day, the market will dictate who has clean material streams and who has contaminated streams. If we were having such a problem with this, I would be right there in agreement with Advance. I don't agree because it isn't an issue, it's a red herring. I don't have a problem with glass in my material, period. If Advance wants to invest in the same system that we have and compete head-to-head with this, I say great. But let's see this for what it is and not take the residents of this city backwards because of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak to this item? Welcome.
I wasn't going to say anything, but since we got attacked.
Sir, if you could just state your name, please.
Harold Pressman, Advanced Recycling.
Thank you, Joe.
All we were talking about is glass, on how we know it don't fit and can't be getting out of the fiber no matter what kind of machine you have. We weren't here to attack him, but I felt like I should remind you that we were only talking about the glass shards and the end user, not what we trying to back up the truck and go away from single stream or getting rid of glass. Glass can be recycled, that's great. There's just a better way of doing it than putting it in the fiber. Either you take the fiber out or you take the glass out, but the two together, when it comes to the minute shards, no machine can take them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak to this item? Very good. Well, thank you. Council, and I'll turn it over to you. Any questions or comments or motions? Councilor Urbanbach.
Question for Bob. And I know I've asked you this before, but I just need to clarify it. Talk about talk about glass in the ordinance. How are we handling glass in the ordinance that we're voting on tonight?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Councilor. It's important to recognize and remember that glass has not been banned by the council. Glass can be disposed of in landfill. It is also important that it is not to know that it is not a required recyclable by ordinance. And because of that, we believe, because of that, it's a good thing. Because in these situations, if a customer does not want to recycle glass for whatever reason, if they don't think it's the greenest way of handling it, they could choose not to recycle glass and not put it in a single stream collection system. If a hauler does not want to handle glass in the single stream recycling, they can not accept glass from their customers and use single stream for all other materials. So I think that's very important, and I think that shows the prudence of our solid waste planning board. We've known glass has always been a fairly strong contentious issue over the last decade, and they're just not quite there yet to mandate it or to request a mandate to the council. And I hope the day comes where the solid waste planning board and the technology has proven itself beyond doubt that we can basically mandate glass and move in that direction. But right now, we've got a perfect situation. We have one issue that's bothering our community between the recycling industries, and we have a solution. They do not have to recycle glass. But those that choose to recycle, we want it in a single stream because that makes it the ease for the customer.
Councilor Muck.
Just one more question then, Bob. Because I don't know who they are, but there are people in this world that still don't believe that recycling is an important thing. Would you talk to me about the financial part of recycling for the city of Sioux Falls? You talk about the life of that landfill and what that thing costs us.
Sure. Dave McElroy's here, and he's closer to those numbers as the manager of that landfill. Probably the biggest thing on a cost, beyond cost, is just to ever open another landfill. That burden on this community is going to be tremendous. There is a recent survey nationally that shows of all the land uses that are put out there that the publics are against, the number one is the placement of a landfill. So just for instance, let's say we average 30% recycling in our landfill while we operate that landfill. And if that landfill, let's just say for a number, lasts 90 years, if we did not recycle, that landfill only lasts 60 years. So in essence, the efforts that the past councils and this council hopefully will allow us to extend that landfill to generations to come. And we will basically delay that. And I truly believe the day will come that we may not see landfills. But the costs are there. There are tremendous costs for airspace for running landfills. And the bottom line is, we're creating resources that weren't there 10, 15 years ago. Products are being reused that weren't there. So there's so many intangible benefits and cost reductions by recycling that benefit our community and the world that I think are going to be later realized even stronger. So,
thank you.
Councilor Jameson.
Bob, a couple questions for you if I could. First one, I'll get this out of the way. I had a resident call me today, and she was asking about her shredded paper that she has, and she lives in an apartment building of some sort, and that their hauler is waste management. And she had called them and asked if where she should put this shredded paper. Mm-hmm. And they had told her not in the recyclables, but in the regular garbage. And then I called Novak and asked them how they handled shredded paper, and they recycle it. How could we get them to be on the same page of taking that paper? Because there's a lot of confidential stuff that we have and others have that needs to be shredded, and if I shouldn't be throwing it, can you help me explain why there would be two different approaches to that?
And I think you hit on a really key point that this is going to help us resolve. Right now, the City of Sioux Falls has very limited public education ability, because if somebody calls us and says, what can I recycle and how do I recycle it, we have to say, you need to check with your hauler, because your hauler may be handling it differently through a collection method. They may have collecting different materials because of the collection method. And because of that, our hands are tied. We have to refer them back to the hauler and their recycler to determine how it can be done. But paper, like office paper, is a banned material from our landfill. It is a requirement that all citizens within our region recycle that material. Now, shredded paper is just another issue that recyclers deal with, just like glass. It is easier to handle a sheet of paper versus shredded paper. And what we did is, in our ordinance, we basically provided, if it is adopted, we can adopt specific handling techniques that we could require all recyclers and haulers use, so we could provide that consistent message to the public. As an example, most places that you deal with shredded paper, kind of what I'm seeing is the technique is you put it in a clear plastic bag and you can throw it right in your single stream container. So that way the shredded paper kind of stays together before it goes to the recycling facility, and they have a greater opportunity to removing it and processing it versus sheets paper. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to kind of resolve some of those issues. And the closer we get to finalizing a recycling collection method and recycled materials throughout our community, then we will be able to do a better job at public education to remove those confusing issues.
If I could, the other question I think is the hot topic of the day is glass. I think all of us would probably agree that single stream is the way to go. And I think that both recycling communities, our businesses agree that single stream is the way to go. But glass, you're sending, I believe, a mixed message when the Solid Waste Board does not ban glass from the landfill. But yet you're telling people it's okay to throw it into your recyclables. And I get the approach that we're trying to get as much as we can to be recycled.
Right.
But I'll tell you, if you guys just banned glass from the landfill, it would really deliver the message that, I actually changed my buying patterns based on what you banned from the landfill. Sure. And based on what I'm hearing, I'm going to buy a lot less glass. But I buy it today because I think it's okay. But now I've learned that it's not really a banned item. And I'm getting mixed signals here about its marketability or the problems it causes. And I'm concerned about the mixed message. Help me straighten that out.
First of all, I appreciate your foresight. I think we will eventually ban glass. I think the industry is getting to the point where it's going to be a fully marketable material, It's going to be able to be processed and not have problems. I mean, it's not just the material recycling facilities that are changing to these changes in the industry. The mills are also. They're investing in improving their equipment just in case there are a little bit of contamination that comes in there, whether it's plastic, glass, or whatever. They're doing a better job of handling those materials. But I think the important thing is that, you know, I think at the time when the Solid Waste Planning Board feels it's appropriate, they will make that recommendation. But it also, as you know, if the administration or council would like us to proceed on banning glass, we could do that with or without the Solid Waste Planning Board's recommendation, but generally that's the process we take. I don't think it's that confusing, because the only confusion is that we cannot get out there and public educate. That's where the confusion is. They're getting education only from their haulers, if they're getting education from their haulers. So I think that's where the problem is. And it's not just glass. Right now, we only ban 1 and 2 plastics in our landfill. Well, we know the recyclers accept a lot more than that. Some of the recyclers accept all plastics, all the way down to 7 or further. We take that. We don't ban it. So I don't think it's really a confusion issue. And when you get down to it, it's just a lack of public education.
Okay. Councilor Inman.
I do know that it is definitely easier for the citizens to have single stream recycling. There's no doubt about it. And I know a lot of folks that never did any recycling at all because it was a pain to separate the glass and the newspaper and the messes that resulted as a result of it. And it was just easier to put it all in the trash. And even ourselves now at our house, our recyclables is definitely a lot more than what our regular garbage is. And I think that that's something that is really cool. And the simplicity of it, I think, for our citizens is key. I agree. I do believe that the industry itself, the end user of this product, so to speak, is going to have to adapt to change, because that's the way that it's going. And it's just natural. And it doesn't sound so much like our folks are really suffering. They haven't had any turndowns in the products that they've had. So they should be commended for their efforts that they have all done. So I guess I would support this ordinance. I think it's a good ordinance for the city. It's very simplistic in its approach, and I commend you and your team for the work you've done on this.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Bob, on this, we're going to stay on the glass here. What's the market out there for glass? Is there any market right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of different markets out there. But as is said, I think the last statistics I showed that I've seen, it's still one of the lowest material that is being fully recycled. But there are markets out there. I mean, if you go to the Twin Cities, they have advanced recycling facilities that are taking this glass, and their systems are segregating it by a computer or system, that whether it's green glass, brown glass, or blue glass. And when they do that, they can actually take glass and reuse it right back into creating blue glass bottles. They can take it back and take green broken glass, create green bottles. That's the ultimate, is to basically take a product, put it right back into the same product that was used before. Personally, I do not know what the markets are from our recyclers that are taking the glass. I believe they're using it for like probably a lower grade glass as an aggregate. But that's a very valuable resource to our community. It's very common to see companies that are using glass aggregate in different road products. It's being used in some engineered landfills. Like currently right now, we have used some crushed glass instead of going out and buying pea gravel and that type of thing to encompass our gas pipes that we're laying out there. So it's a use of that product versus burying it in the landfill. So there's multiple uses out there, but it is one of those industries that was one of the last ones to develop.
And if we approve this tonight and we single stream glass, what's the cost to our landfill? As far as, glass just doesn't go away very quickly.
Yeah, we won't see, I don't think we'll see any costs to our landfill with this ordinance change glass, except we're hoping we'll see less glass going to our landfill. And ultimately that means less airspace tied up by reusable products. So that's what we're ultimately trying to do. And the city of Minnesota just passed a single stream ordinance also, going to single stream with glass. And they had a big study done. They spent a lot of money. And I think they're anticipating, up to like 30% of their recyclable materials by weight will be glass. when this gets done. And they believe by going to single stream in Minneapolis, it's going to take them from an 18% recycling rate to a 32% just by adopting single stream in their city. So we anticipate some great improvements here too. So,
Council, very good questions. Would anybody like to make a motion on this item?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Any further questions? Councilor Jameson.
If I could, Bob, can you tell us offhand what Rapid City does with their glass and/or Omaha and Fargo?
No, I can't. And I'm being very honest with you. I'm one of those managers that doesn't like to follow. I usually like to lead, and I don't keep a track on what's going in a lot of those communities. And Dave, you may know on some of those communities. I know Omaha has been brought up before in front of this council as an issue with glass. And what I have been advised that there is an issue where Omaha does not accept glass in their single stream. And the reason, what I've been told, the reason being is that the recycling facility down there has not invested in the infrastructure to handle it. And they set out, I think they went with like a 10-year contract with that recycling facility. So they're kind of bound by that contract until it's over. And then hopefully at that time they will basically invest into a recycling facility that will accept glass. Rapid City has what they call a major MRF that accepts all their solid waste, and they separate solid waste and recyclables through their major material recovery facility out in Rapid City. And I believe they do take glass, don't they, Dave? No? I don't think so. Yeah, I can't speak for sure of Rapid City and Fargo. So,
I don't want to imply that you don't lead. Don't take that wrong. I think it'd be good for us to know, and it kind of gets down to the heart of the matter is that if we didn't have somebody that could take glass, what would you say?
If we did not have the local infrastructure to handle glass, I think the Solid Waste Planning Board would not be here today with this ordinance as written. But we do have that infrastructure in place from the private industry, and it has proven itself as being successful.
I mean, what we have here is and this is discussions, we have two businesses, one that can handle glass and one that cannot. And what this is going to do is push the other that cannot handle glass in their separation process to get the equipment to do it. And, I'm thankful that we have people in our community who have businesses to even do this. Otherwise, we wouldn't be recycling, like you say.
Right.
So I'm glad about that. I just feel a little bit like we're pressuring one of our businesses to change, and then our own solid waste management board doesn't even think that it's that necessary to enforce glass being recycled. So there's my struggle on this decision. I want to go single stream. I'm just concerned about glass, and that's the bottom line of it, I guess. Just for discussion.
I guess I'd just like to share one comment. I think if this ordinance is adopted, I think this will move us in the direction of that confidence to the board to mandate glass. So I think this is just one step that maybe is necessary.
Bob, if I could, you're right. I mean, if nobody was objecting to glass, that would be a real easy step to take, and that's not what we are trying to do as easy steps. It's doing the right thing.
Right.
And it's just my struggle here is that if we take glass out, we have one investor who spent probably millions of dollars being prepared for glass, and that's not good for him. That'll affect his business. I get that. But on the other hand, we're going to actually require another business owner to invest or get out, and that concerns me.
And I think, to be honest with you, that's where one thing personally as an individual, I'm glad we don't mandate glass right now, because any recycler could still choose not to accept glass because we don't mandate it. I mean, there's opportunities out there where a recycling facility could sit and say, I'm just going to service the business and industrial side and not go into residential recycling, because this is an ordinance for residential recycling. So there's still opportunities out there. Somebody really didn't want to use glass, wanted to stay source separated. We have the luxury that allows that, and I think that's a positive thing. It gives that one industry an opportunity to sit and make an investment to handle glass, or to stay and make a competitive market for source separated materials without glass. It does give them options. And the other thing I want to make sure the council is aware of, if we did make the request of banning glass from single stream. It's not just the recycler that would be impacted. The majority of the haulers would have to change. Now, they would have to change their whole trucking system, that they can go out with a normal compactor truck and what they use for garbage and put all the recyclables in. They may not be able to do it anymore. They'd have to, again, change their equipment and have a separate compartment for glass. And so it would be a significant impact on the solid waste industry also.
If I could, just tell me, I think there's something important there maybe I missed before, was the fact that myself, if I wanted to keep glass out of the system, I could separate it, or I'd just throw it in the landfill stuff.
The way this ordinance is written, if you as a customer uses a hauler who uses single stream and they accept glass and you recycle glass, the glass must be in the single stream recycling container. Now, that doesn't stop us. And to be honest with you, I think there's some good ideas here. We may still someday go and accept some glass collection points around the city. And if a citizen really wants to and keep their glass separated and to maybe get a better end use, we could still do that. It's just that if you're going to recycle glass, this will require you to put the glass in the single stream container.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Councilor Rebroadcast.
A couple of things, and Bob touched on it just a little bit. It's not just those recycling centers that have made investments or may need to make investments to stay competitive. It's also those haulers that are making, we have haulers in this community that have made huge investments in this process in terms of single stream recycling. I would urge council to vote in favor of this amendment, but the other thing I would say then, as the queen of field trips, I'm telling you, recycling facilities are awesome field trips, and it would answer a lot of your questions in terms of how those things get sorted out. How is it that we make blue glass out of all that, all those mixed up colors and all those kinds of things? It's an amazing process, and I'd encourage council and other folks to take a field trip.
Well, there has been a motion made. It has been seconded. If there is no further discussion or motions, roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson Jr.,
Yes.
Entman, Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 5-0. Thank you. Item 20.
Item 20 is second reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Section 26-18 of the revised ordinances of the city by bringing the penalty section into compliance with state law limitations placed on city ordinance penalties.
Ms. Fifley, welcome.
Mayor, Council, Dave Fifley with the City Attorney's Office. As indicated at the first reading, what this would do is there is a current ordinance on our books that says that a penalty for being on the Big Sioux River, if the governor has declared an emergency and banning any type of use of the Sioux River, is a 6-month jail sentence as a maximum. State law does not allow a city to impose that type of maximum penalty, and our office is requesting that we conform this ordinance with state law, amending it so that it's only 30 days jail time.
David, thank you. Folks, this is a second reading. Would anybody be interested in talking to the council about this? Very good, council. I'll defer to you.
Move to approve Entman.
Second, Anderson.
It's been a motion to approve by Councilor Entenmann, second by Councilor Anderson Jr. Is there any discussion? Then a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson Jr.,
Yes.
Entman,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That is passed 5-0. Item 21.
21 is to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7, 2012 at 7 p.m. on first reading of an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 12.5, Conflicts of Interest of Officers and Employees and Ethics Board.
Mayor, hello again. This is a topic that has come up since about late 2011. I had the clerk's office post a memorandum dated from December 22nd of 2011. This item went to the Public Services Committee on or about January 9th of 2012. And what has happened procedurally is we all wanted to have the Board of Ethics have jurisdiction to hear possible election ordinance issues, and that went to the voters in April 10. That charter amendment did pass, so that now the voters have allowed the Board of Ethics to hear election ordinance complaints. And hence, now that that process has completed itself, we're revisiting the rest of the ordinance provisions. The Public Services Committee in January, by a unanimous 4-0 vote, passed this on to the whole council. The January meeting of the Board of Ethics, they also unanimously approved these items. I want to thank each and every one of you for your input and suggestions that went into these actual revisions. And I think citizens will be very pleased with the results in terms of the transparency of the process, the oversight, the watchdog role that would take place, and they can be assured that their city elected officials as well as the city employees are under a very strict code of ethics, and there will be consequences for violations of it. Briefly, I looked at approximately 41 state legislative acts regarding state ethics commissions. Frankly, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I wanted to look at some ideas from all over, in addition to these suggestions from you folks. Two main areas were really glaring in terms of what the concerns were. One was when a complaint, an ethics complaint, should be made public, and secondly, how do you handle frivolous complaints? And the natural definition of a frivolous complaint is a complaint lacking a rational basis in law or fact. States on the disclosure issue have attempted to strike a balance between the public's right to know and the accused's right to respond to a complaint before it is made public. In addition, over about the last 3 decades, I've seen a growing body of case law that has also addressed this issue. And the thing that was very clear was that for elected officials, there seemed to be a lot less privacy interest rather than, say, city employees. In fact, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals stated that high-ranking public official has no privacy interest in freedom from accusations, baseless though they may be, that touch upon his or her conduct in public office or his or her campaign for public office. Of these 41 states that have legislated ethics commissions, all of them allow the release of the complaints to the public. The real question is a matter of when. This city is in the minority in terms of other municipalities as well as state ethics commissions for keeping complaints confidential in perpetuity. Only 3 states follow that approach where they never release them to the public on elected officials, and that would be Louisiana, Mississippi, and Illinois. 11 state ethics commissions release the complaint at any time during the process if the accused waives confidentiality. That's what Sioux Falls currently does. As a broad overview, and I beg your indulgence for a moment, this bit of speech for me is more just since we haven't addressed this issue for a while, it's for the public benefit. I know all of you are keenly aware of the issues. But our ethics ordinances are divided into 2 parts. There's Article 2 that deals with employees, and there's Article 3 that deals with elected officials. That would be the 9 of you. For Article 3 complaints, the Board of Ethics issues a report with findings and recommendations, and then it goes on to the City Council for further handling. For Article 2 complaints, these are kept confidential regardless unless the accused waives confidentiality. In our proposal, we are stating that the Article 3 complaints, those against elected officials, become public once the Board of Ethics issues its report and findings and recommendations, so that any hearing in front of the City Council would become essentially a public hearing. The public would have a chance to essentially view the evidence the same as the City Council would, and they would be engaged in terms of what the accusations are, what the evidence is, and what the possible outcome would be. This process would be similar to the process followed in 11 states, including our sister state of Minnesota. On the frivolous complaints issue, there was a survey done by the Center for Ethics in Government, and that is through the National Council of State Legislatures, as of February 2011, that indicated, and I quote, "Most state ethics commissions have the authority to dismiss a complaint if it is determined to be frivolous." Now, the actual grounds for what is frivolous, like I said earlier, are usually it lacks a rational basis in law or fact. The determination of whether a complaint is frivolous is often taken early in the complaint process by these different ethics commissions. The proposal in front of you would do that same thing. 7 states impose costs and attorney fees as a sanction for a dismissed frivolous complaint. Several of you had in fact suggested this as a possible sanction for a frivolous complaint. Other issues have arisen since these proposals came out in about January, and one of them is certainly we tried to tie in the fraud control policy into the Board of Ethics, where we would have, rather than, say, the Fraud Control Committee being Rich Oaksall, Lead Internal Auditor, Bill O'Toole, the Human Resources Director, the Chair of the Audit Committee, who's currently Counselor Jameson, and myself investigating a possible fraud hotline complaint against an elected official. We wanted to move that to the Board of Ethics so we'd have an independent citizen board. With the proposal in front of you, that would be accomplished. The issue becomes, as I stated back in January, is a fraud hotline complaint can be done anonymously. Now, the proposal in front of you is written so that the Board of Ethics could take a fraud hotline complaint anonymously. Otherwise, under current ordinance, you are required as a complaining party to sign your name, identify yourself, so that you, as the accused, know who your accuser is. Before the second reading, and we have a couple weeks, I would urge you and respectfully urge you to consider whether we should treat the fraud hotline complaint as a confidential complaint or whether we should have it also where that person needs to identify themselves if it involves an elected official. The other issue that's arisen since January is the Board of Ethics can no longer vote without naming the elected official, and therefore the sections on confidential advisory opinions, unfortunately, can no longer be accomplished by the board. And our office is going to request that there be an amendment at the second reading to delete the ability of the board, unfortunately, to render or issue confidential advisory opinions. Needless to say, at the last Board of Ethics meeting, this fact was lamented because that was a major function of the board, helping both the 9 elected officials as well as other city officials and employees in grappling with ethics issues to be able to provide them that confidential access to the board and get an advisory opinion to govern their conduct in advance. That was a major function for this Board of Ethics, and unfortunately, that function can no longer be performed. So we were going to ask that that particular section be amended both in Article 2 and in Article 3. From a functional standpoint, I'm going to encourage anyone to continue contacting our office, the City Attorney's Office. We will help them as best we can, advise them on how to handle the ethics ordinances. And certainly, there are issues where you are offered, say some tickets to a game or something by someone, and as an elected official, you grapple with that. Do you accept it or not? Is it de minimis or not? And items like that do come up on occasion, and our office wants to continue to help you through that process. But with that, I'll answer any questions.
Well, Council, this is a first reading. If there are no questions, would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. for item 21?
So move, Entenmann.
Second.
There's been a motion by Councilor Entenmann, seconded by Councilor Jamieson. And yes, Councilor Jamieson?
Mr. Mayor, if I could get the city attorney to give us his request in writing, an email to us so that we can review that versus trying to remember what he said. And maybe we have that. Okay.
Hallelujah, Councilor Jamieson. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, very good. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamieson?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That has passed 5-0. Item 22.
22 is first reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, repealing subsection 4 of Chapter 1559306 of Appendix B of the zoning ordinance of said city. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Good evening. I'm Mike Cooper with City Planning and Building Services, and my teammate tonight is Jeff Schmidt. We're going to be presenting a number of items tonight for first reading that were discussed at the last regular meeting of the City Planning Commission. Item 22 is a change to our zoning ordinance that would eliminate a provision under on-sale alcohol uses that include video lottery, that they have to be at least 2,000 feet from a school, park, or other video lottery machine establishment. This provision within our code was reviewed by the South Dakota Supreme Court last year, and they ruled that we did not have the authority to enforce this provision.
Thank you, Michael. Councilor Jamieson.
Move to approve.
Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Jamieson's made a motion to approve, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Council members Jamieson?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
And that has passed 5-0. Item 23.
23 is first reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at Southeastern Avenue and East Stony Brook Trail from the RS2 Residential District to the RC Recreation Conservation District, petition number 2012-0520, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition by Scott Gilbert, the developer of Whispering Woods South Development, and this is generally in the area east of Southeastern Avenue and north of 69th Street. There's about a 2-acre parcel that's being developed into a future drainage way, and the applicant is asking for that to be changed from residential to recreation conservation, which is what our more typical zoning would be for drainage land areas.
Council?
Move to approve the first reading, Entenmann.
Second, Jamieson.
Councilor Entenmann's made a motion to approve, seconded by Councilor Jamieson. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamieson?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Thank you. And what we did there, folks, was we set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. Item number 24.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 105 South Blauvelt Avenue from the C2 General Commercial District to the RD Residential District, petition number 2012-0521, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is an existing residential property owned by Robin Aus, A-O-S. It's just north of East 10th Street and on the west side of Blauvelt Avenue. They are asking the zoning to be changed to conform to the existing residential use. We believe that a large area of this property was changed to commercial a number of years ago in anticipation of some major redevelopment, and that has not happened over the years. So we have been rezoning other residential properties in this area to conform to the current residential uses.
Council, would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. for this item?
So moved, Aguilar.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Aguilar has made that motion, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamieson?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That has passed 5-0. Item 25.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 5204 and 5208 South Loop Place from the C4 Planned Commercial District
to the I-1 Light Industrial District, petition number 2012-0605, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition by the owners of Birschbach Equipment and Supply. They are looking at developing an east side location for their business. This particular land is about 5.5 acres in size. It's on the south side of East 57th Street and on the west side of Highway 11. The current zoning of this property is for commercial development. The land use that's being proposed is classified more as an industrial use because it involves heavy equipment as well as sales and display. So that's the purpose of the request for the change in zoning from commercial to industrial. And they are looking at a 2-story facility that would be approximately 30,000 square feet in size.
Council, would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. for item 25?
So move Anderson.
Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made that motion, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That has passed 5-0. Item 26.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 2003 North Wayland Avenue from the I-1 Light Industrial District to the RS2 Residential District, petition number 2012-0607, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls.
This is a petition by Phyllis Rogers, the owner of this property. This property includes an existing residential building. It's kind of interesting because it's tucked away on the east side of Cliff Avenue, just south of the Big Sioux River, and this is North Cliff Avenue as opposed to South Cliff Avenue. This property includes a large area of industrial zoning. For those of you that have been around a long time, this used to be what was called the Serum Farm, and I believe at the time there was, again, plans for more industrial development, but the owner desires now to continue to use this residential property for residents, and so we're just looking at changing this to conform to the current land use.
Thanks, Mike. Council, we're looking at setting a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. for item 26.
So move Anderson.
Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made that motion, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That has passed 5-0. Item 27.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at West 69th Street and South Louise Avenue from the AG Agricultural District to the Avera Planned Development District, petition number 2012-0610, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls.
This is a petition by Avera McKinnon. The property is located in the southeast corner of Louise and West 69th Street. It's approximately 81 acres in size. This property was previously proposed for a combination of commercial, office, and some residential development. Avera is now proposing to develop this property into a combined corporate and healthcare campus. And by developing this planned development zoning district, it will provide for standards for their buildings, the type of uses that would be allowed within this particular development area. And we expect that this will be a very long-term development plan that will include a number of different buildings that will be constructed over time. Their initial neighborhood meeting that they had was very positive, and I don't believe that we had any neighborhood concern at our Planning Commission public hearing.
Council, we're considering setting a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. for item 27.
So moved, Jameson.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Jameson's made that motion, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That is passed 5-0. Item 28.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a major amendment, petition number 2012-0523 to Chapter 15-45070,
planned development districts at East 6th Street and North Powder House Road, South Dakota Highway 100, allowing changes in land use as reflected in the revised subarea regulations and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition by Foss Fields Development Company, Ron Tisdale, owner. This property, again, is located on East 6th Street and west of Powder House Road. It's about 39 acres in size. Under the previous or current zoning that was approved, there was a potential anticipation that East 6th Street and Highline Avenue would be designed with a roundabout before it would connect over onto Highway 11 or Powder House Road. The owner and developers are now looking at a different model in discussions with our traffic engineering folks and others that we believe that it's better to extend 6th Street directly east to Powder House Road at a major intersection. That would also open up additional land for potential future commercial development. So this, in essence, will expand the amount of land that's proposed for commercial development. For the public, this would be the land that's directly to the north of the Menards property.
Very good, Michael. Thank you. Council, we're considering setting a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. for this item.
So moved, Erpenbach.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Erpenbach's made that motion, second by Councilor Anderson Jr. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That has passed 5-0. Item 29.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at the southwest corner of West 2nd Street and North Kiwanis Avenue from the O Office District to the I-1 Light Industrial District, petition number 2012-0603, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition submitted by the developers of Win Electric. They would like to expand into this area. They are an electrical supply warehouse facility. And this property is currently vacant. It's on the south side of West 2nd Street and on the west side of Kiwanis Avenue. Because the proposed use is classified as industrial with the warehouse component, it does require the zoning change. What they're proposing to construct is a building that will include a combination warehouse and office of about 14,400 square feet in total size, with additional off-street parking. We did have a good discussion with the neighbors about this proposed rezoning. It gets into that discussion that we've had before with you about transitional land uses. We do have residential development directly to the north of this that's been there for quite a few years. The neighbors that live there are primarily concerned about the potential impact of traffic on West 2nd Street with the addition of a driveway with this development that's being requested. And their concern was that couldn't we add another driveway onto Kiwanis, but because of the distance to the intersection of 2nd Street, it's really not feasible to have another driveway that close. So their main concern that you'll hear at second reading, we expect, will be changing from office to industrial with the transition and then the additional traffic that this development might create. But the Planning Commission, after hearing all the discussion, is supporting this zoning change.
Well, thank you, Mike. Council, would we consider setting a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. for this item?
So move, Entenmann.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Entenmann's made that motion, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach? Yes.
That has passed 5-0. Item 30.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 226 West 41st Street and 233 and 229 West 40th Street from the RD Residential District to the C2 General Commercial District, petition number 2012-0608, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition by the owners of Ace Hardware at their 41st Street location to expand. They would like to remove 4 existing residences that they are currently renting. that would be on the east side of their current store and parking lot. They are looking at adding about 12,000 feet to their existing store on the southeast side, and then also adding additional off-street parking spaces. They did have a neighborhood meeting prior to the Planning Commission hearing, and at the Planning Commission hearing, we did not have any neighborhood comments on this proposed rezoning.
Councilor Anderson Jr.
Mike, when, I'm sure this is going to pass. When it does and we go to the second reading, I'm going to have a lot of questions about parking over there.
Thank you, Councilor. Would you mind making a motion, Councilor Anderson Jr., to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m.?
So move.
Second, Erpenbach.
Thank you. There's been a motion by Councilor Anderson Jr., seconded by Councilor Erpenbach on item number 30. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson Jr.
Yes.
Entenmann.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That has passed 5-0. Item 31.
This is deferred action from the meeting of 6/19/12. It's a resolution declaring city support for the adoption of the Lincoln County and Minnehaha County Multi-Hazard Pre-Disaster Mitigation Plan 2011 update.
Regan, welcome.
Good evening. Regan Smith, Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. Before the council tonight is a resolution supporting the adoption of the Minnehaha and Lincoln County Pre-Disaster Mitigation Plan. This is an update to the 2006 plan. The plan makes the city eligible for federal disaster grants, identifies hazards to the community, and then identifies projects so we can mitigate and lessen those risks to the public, public infrastructure, and to business. Any questions?
Regan, thank you.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Move to approve the resolution.
Councilor Entenmann, thank you.
Second, Erpenbach.
A motion made as well as seconded. And if there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson Jr.
Yes.
Entenmann.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
That has passed 5-0. Item 32.
A resolution declaring it necessary to levy and levying a frontage assessment against the lots, tracts, and parcels of land fronting and abutting upon 21st Street from Phillips Avenue to 7th Avenue in the City of Sioux Falls for the purpose of maintaining, planting, and otherwise improving and caring for the center parkways and boulevard thereon.
Hi. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Kelby Maris with Parks and Recreation. This resolution would levy assessments on properties that abut and front 21st Street from Phillips Avenue to 7th Avenue for the purpose to care and improvement of those medians. This assessment has been in place since 1915 when the affected property owners initiated the assessments. There are 53 property owners along the stretch of 21st Street, and this assessment rate has not changed since 1998. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Anderson Jr.
Kelby, I know that one of our missing councilmen would want to question this and ask, you know, why we're assessing these citizens to do this. But this is done with the support of those citizens, am I not correct?
Yes, and historically it has been the people that have been assessed this that have asked for this and have asked for the increased maintenance and improvements to this median.
Thank you.
Well, Kelby, thank you. Council?
Move to approve the resolution. Entenmann.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Entenmann's made a motion, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jameson.
Mayor, if I could.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Councilor Jameson.
I know generally isn't there a time for public input?
There is. Councilor Jameson, thank you. Is there anybody who wanted to speak to this item tonight? Okay, very good. We'll continue on with the roll call vote, please. Councilor Jameson, how would you like to vote, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay, Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson Jr.
Yes.
Entenmann.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Thank you. That has passed 5-0. Councilor Jameson, thank you for keeping me on my toes. I appreciate it. Item number 33.
A resolution supporting the candidacy of Michael M. Hall for a position on the Board of Directors of the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance, SDPAA.
David.
Thank you, Mayor. Briefly, the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance is a pool of local governments that have banded together to insure themselves, and it has a board of directors, and the city is fortunate to have currently on that board of directors Tracy Turback, our Director of Finance, as well as Mike Hall, our risk manager. And this resolution is required by their bylaws, as Mike Hall is seeking re-election to that board of directors, and this would merely state that this body supports his candidacy.
David, thank you. Anybody want to speak to that item? Very good. Council, any comments?
Move approval, Aguilar.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Aguilar has made a motion to approve this resolution, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson Jr.?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
And that has passed 5-0. I just want to let the people of Sioux Falls know that Scout Troop 361 is still here. It's 8:45. They've been here since about 6:45. They've been engaged. They've been professional, and we love it. So thank you for being here. And we also have about 10 others that have stuck it out as well, along with, of course, 5 very, very dedicated city councilors and Lori Hogsett. How can I forget you? With that in mind, Council, would anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So move, Anderson.
Second, Erpenbach.
Got a motion to adjourn by Councilor Anderson Jr., seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? This meeting is adjourned, Sioux Falls. Make it a great, great night.